Welcome back to Cash and Sass, the podcast where we ditch the shame, talk real numbers, and build bold, bankable wealth without sacrificing who we are. I'm your host, Lisa Marie, fractional CFO, wealth mentor, and the sassy wealth queen behind Transcendent Wealth Co. And if you're ready to scale with strategy, own your power, and finally feel wealthy in every sense of the word, then you're in the right place. Today's guest is someone who's rewriting what it means to blend heart and hustle. Sarah Buino is a therapist, consultant, and visionary leader helping healing professionals bridge the gap between service and sustainability. She's the founder of Head Heart Therapy, Head Heart Business Therapy, and Group Practice Revolution, where she's creating cultures rooted in belonging, abundance, and self-awareness. We're diving deep into money wounds, business boundaries, and what it looks like to hold wealth with integrity, my favorite thing, without losing your humanity in the process. So, as I always say, let's get into it. Welcome, Sarah. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to have you. And we're just going to dive in.
Yeah. And can I just say too, my last name
Yes.
is pronounced Buino.
Oh, I normally ask. I am so sorry.
Yeah.
Buino. See, I said it
Buino.
wrong. I am
It's
so
like,
sorry.
think of it like Bweeno, Buino.
And I apologize.
Yeah.
I normally ask, and
It's all good.
But you shared that you lost $50K in a partnership that went sideways. And I'm interested to see, because I think the listeners will want to know, that what did that experience teach you, not just about trust, but also about contracts and protecting yourself in business?
Well, it taught me that I didn't know anything about business. And so when I went into that, I was really trusting of this person who I was friends with. And he had some ideas about things that we could do together, and they seemed really big and really like outside of my scope. And so I was really dependent on his expertise in some of these areas, and I got none of that expertise. He was basically full of shit. And so I ended up figuring out how to do all of the things. And once I realized that I wasn't getting any help from him and he was just going to end up taking most of the money at the end of the day, I was like, I'm out. And it was interesting because I was working with a lawyer to try to draft agreements. And the problem was we had already started doing the thing before we had the agreements about it. And so that's the first thing I would do. And I'm about to start another business with a friend of mine. And I've been talking with my accountant and all these things. And, she and I have realized like, okay, we've got to do the operating agreement before we, get too far down the line to make sure that all of those ducks are in a row. And it was after that experience when I ended that business relationship where I said like, oh, I'm a business owner. How about I act like a business owner instead of just somebody that's like, ooh, I'm just kind of like doing this. And that's when I was really able to change the practice around and have it work smarter, really, and hired a management team and all those sorts of other things. And then I felt like, oh, I actually do know a lot more than I thought I did. And so while, losing $50,000 and being betrayed by someone you thought was a good friend of yours is no fun, it was actually a huge learning opportunity for me.
Yeah, because it teaches us, okay, that maybe there's something, like you said, that we didn't know that we should be doing now. And then it also opens the doors to what maybe, later there opened up there for you later, right? Because, now you've got even more doors and now okay, hey, let's, it's not that I don't trust you, and let's make sure we've got something in place that protects both of us and that benefits both of us. And I think that's really important. One of the things that I am going to ask is, learning from this, what's some advice that you would give, especially for the women entrepreneurs? How can we avoid, or how can they avoid the legal stuff because it just feels uncomfortable or untrusting? You know what I mean? Because so often we're like, oh, well, we don't want that person to not think we don't trust them. But you're making sure those things are in order now, right? And part of me wants to go, hello, avoid losing 50K. If that's not enough reason, I think it's important that we realize that even if we trust the person we're going to go into a partnership with or do something with, we still should have something that protects each side.
And it's unfortunate. Like I'm a person who really leads with relationship and leads with my heart. And there are still relationships that go sideways. It's just like a marriage, right? You should, if you have assets, you should have a prenup when you get married, just because you never know. Like, the more you love someone, I think the more you probably hate them when you're separating from them. And so from this experience, I had a lawyer tell me, like, always plan for the exit at the beginning, because you never know what's going to go sideways and whatever. You deserve to protect what it is that you've built, right? And at that point, I honestly didn't value enough what I had created, because I didn't see myself as a business person. I was just like, oh, I'm just a therapist and I just have a couple people that work for me. And I think that that was a real detriment to honoring what I had built up until that point. And it wasn't until, like, I was at fear of risk of losing it that I was like, oh, maybe I need to figure out how to protect this better.
I love that. Yeah, and I think that's really important because if we take credit and give ourselves where credit's due, right, of what we've built, then we're gonna make sure, I tell people, it's like, wouldn't you protect your baby at all costs? And people say, yes. It's okay. Then why aren't you protecting your business? Because isn't that your baby? You created it.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't you protecting it?
Mm.
So I love that. One of the things that you mentioned also was like growing up with negative beliefs about rich people. And then you know where I'm going.
Uh-huh.
And then you married into generational wealth.
A rich
Now,
person.
I know, right?
Quote unquote. Yeah.
And you and I've met in person before, and I love you. So I'm going to ask, how in the hell, what came up for you, and how did that experience actually shift your perspective on money and identity? Because I mean, I know
Yeah.
what I've done to shift my perspective, and I didn't marry into someone who had generational wealth, aka being rich.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It was honestly, it was a really tumultuous process for me. I'm trying to remember the sequence of events. So he and I met, and I had decided to go back to grad school, I think once we had gotten engaged. And it wasn't until we got engaged that I started really, like, sort of panicking and recognizing that I had this bias. So I grew up in Southern Ohio. My mom was very, very Christian. Like, I don't know how many times my mom would say things like, it's easier for a camel to walk through the eye of a needle than a rich man, right? And that was how we were raised. And we were really scrappy. My mom was a single mom for a really long time. My dad almost bankrupted them when we were really little. So there's a lot that went into that. I have Appalachian roots, so I think that's also part of it, is like, that sort of like Protestant work ethic, and like, we work hard for our money. It's not handed to us.
It's a Southern thing too.
Yeah, yeah, that would make a lot of sense. And just to be very clear, like, right now I'm living in a 1,200 square foot house. Like, it's under $400,000, which might sound a lot for a lot of people, but in Chicago, that's pretty low. Like, I'm not living like this rich lifestyle because my husband is also a social worker. But like I said, generational wealth. So when his mother passes away, we will inherit the wealth then. And I'm already thinking about, like, how can we use that to help others, because we don't have kids and we don't need to pass it. So anyway, I was in grad school. I think I started grad school right after we got married. And one of the assignments that I had to do for one of my courses was to write about my bias towards some population. And that's what I chose. And I remember bringing that into therapy with me and feeling like I am resentful of him just be like, having this available when I didn't have this available growing up. And I also felt like I don't deserve to be a beneficiary of this. And it was just kind of over time that I worked through it. And now, literally, we just had our 20-year first date anniversary. So now I feel like I'm vested in the family, and I have done some work in the family that makes me feel like I've earned my keep. I've proven I'm not a gold digger, like, because there was that kind of stuff, like all of the messages that
like,
my mom would have told me.
Who are you to be married into someone and
Yeah.
be getting, could be getting something like this, because they'll come to, but you're like, who
Yeah.
am I, right?
Yeah.
What did that teach you about worthiness, though? When it comes to the money that you didn't earn directly.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think it's more of a critique of capitalism than anything else. Like, I was just listening to a guy, his name is Frank Gruber McAllister, and he's a psychotherapist that talks about anti-capitalism a lot and Marxism and democratic socialism. And it's unfair that some people are born into generational wealth and a lot of people are not. And that is one of the biggest determinants of health, of happiness, right? All
Mhm.
of these things that we really don't have control over. I mean, from a spiritual perspective, I think we do, but like, from like a very mundane perspective, we don't have these choices. And so I do blame capitalism overall for that because there is no person who is worthy or not worthy. Like we all have worth just because we exist. And I'm hopeful that after the disaster that is the current administration, we return to a more socialistic desire to care for one another again. Like
Amen on
I'm
that one.
historically I'm hearing comparisons, from World War II to like Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security being created, right? Those are socialist programs, people. Like that is socialism. And it only makes sense because we're born into, different bodies because capitalism says that, your productivity is how much you are worth. Well, I'm a mostly able-bodied, bright person. So I'm worth more to capitalism than somebody who is disabled, maybe has intellectual disabilities, right?
Mhm.
That's not fucking fair. That's ridiculous.
And as
Like,
mom of someone who has a disability and mental health
right.
disorder, yes, you're absolutely correct, and no, it's not fucking fair. It's not, and I agree with you. I mean, it's one of the things that I love about you is you speak your mind. I love it, and that's one of the reasons why I couldn't wait, and honestly, this is coming at a good time because I think it's time for us to stop. I mean, you've heard me say this, constantly about money, is that where has not talking about it gotten us? Where is us not
Mhm.
talking about mental health got us? Whereas anything of not talking about it got us right where we're at, which is not where most of us want to be. So
Mhm.
maybe we need to flip it and we need to start talking about it. And one of the things that I love, and my heart is very, very loving with therapists and psychologists because of the work y'all do, because I suffered from PTSD when I was younger. My daughter has a mental health disorder. And y'all do a lot of work. And one of the things that I've noticed working with therapists, which I think is so true for a lot of therapists, and you've even said it, is that numbers used to make you freeze, and
Mhm.
that's one of the things that I see with a lot of therapists. Y'all do such good work, and then when it's time to actually go look at it or know anything about it,
Mhm.
and this is also true for heart-led entrepreneurs and business owners, is when it comes to looking at we freeze. So, how did you start building that confidence with the financial side of your business? Because I'm constantly saying you need to know your numbers.
Yeah. I mean, part of it was having somebody who was really good at that teach me. I have a really great accounting team that, was like, this is what you look at when you're looking at these reports. And then I had hired my consultant, Aggie Chajinski, when I was going to sell Head Heart Therapy. And she helped me and Rael Grayson, who eventually bought the business, helped us really understand what all this meant. And so I've then now been trying to support the consulting clients that I have to see like the numbers tell a story. And when we're looking at this, like, what does this say? And what is this telling us about what our priorities are and all of that sort of stuff? Some people may disagree with me, but I don't care. I think that I'm right. I think all therapists have trauma. I think we all have trauma
Well, I mean,
histories.
I've told you that would make sense. That
Yeah.
would actually make sense
Yeah.
because one of the things I was going to ask you also, and so I'll make it a two-part question so you can answer that one and then this one. Why do you think so many healers feel disconnected or even repelled by money?
I mean, I think, yeah, there's a lot wrapped up in this. So if therapists have trauma that kind of compels us to go into the field. There's an article somewhere that talks about we make our preoccupations our occupations, right? So if we go into this with trauma, there's probably self-worth or self-esteem issues that go with that. And then once we find the thing we're good at, therapy, we're like, oh, I can finally feel good about myself. And like, I'm good at this. I can stay in my lane. I don't have to worry about all these other things. But the problem is that in a capitalist society, you have to figure out how to make money in order to pay your bills and feed yourself and all of those other things. So it's like there's a disconnect between what it is that we want to do and what it is that we have to do in a business. And I would guess that a lot of individual practice owners don't think of themselves as business owners. And when I coach people who are trying to start their own practices, I'm like, please think of yourself as a business owner, because putting that hat on for yourself is going to help you do some of these things that you're not going to like, which is like, researching liability insurances and going through your P&L on a regular basis, doing your bookkeeping, all of those sorts of things. So the question was, why are healers averse to money? There's a really great book called Radical Healership by Laura May Northrup. I need to reach out to her because I talk about her and this book a lot. And she is trying to help those of us in the healing professions recognize that it's okay to say, like, I charge for the work that I do, and I'm not going to take low fees. Part of it is like, it's not, it's, even though we're starting as a society to better understand that therapy is not just a luxury, it's really a necessity these days. The country doesn't value mental health, truly. Like, we can say the thing, but like at the end of the day, the insurance companies decide how
No.
much
Yeah.
therapists make, right? And
Yeah.
how much, people get paid for all of the health work. So there's an inherent disconnect in what it means to heal and what it means to support somebody who's healing and money. Like, I really wish I didn't have to charge people for that type of work, but we do because we're in capitalism. So if we had a different type of society where, there's universal basic income or some other ways that therapists can do their work and not necessarily charging for the hour, I would love to figure out what that would be. I'm not smart enough to do that, but there are probably people out there that are figuring it out. And I really hope that during this time, therapists are thinking about not just how do we protect ourselves right now, but what comes next? What comes
Mhm.
after the empire falls? Because the empire is falling. And that's why we're all scared to death. We have to have a plan for what happens next. In order to do that, we have to dream, and we have to be connected to ourselves enough to know what do we really want for ourselves. And this is beyond money. Like, for me, money is a product of doing good work. Like, that's it. I am never going after a dollar number. I don't talk to myself about like, "Ooh, I want to make X amount of money." I'm like, "I want to do X amount of things and I need this amount of money to live." And I just trust that if I do good work, the money is going to follow at some point. I'm just like not wired to think about it from a financial standpoint, but I think I do okay.
I think it's really awesome that you think from that standpoint, because not just therapists, but a lot of people have a difficult time, I think, of being able to separate needing the money, right, to pay the bills, take care of the kids, and believing, okay, if I do the thing I'm good at and do good in the world, like with me, I want to help as many women as possible stay on their 2 feet, whether they need to or not. I've set it to where it's actually 1 million women, right? And over the next, I think I said next 15 years. Okay. So, and that's a huge goal, right? And I'm very passionate about it because I don't want money to be a taboo. Money
Mhm.
shouldn't be a taboo subject. I was talking about money and creating wealth for generations to come so that we're able to support ourselves and we don't have to be dependent on whatever is going on in the current world at the time, right? And at the same time, sometimes the lines will cross to where even me, as a fractional CFO and wealth mentor, will go, I need this to be able to live. How do I also concentrate on this and say I'm not focused on money, and at the same time, yet I need you see what I'm
Yeah, yeah,
saying?
yeah.
That we need
No.
money. And I think sometimes that's kind of, sometimes it's difficult. So I'm curious, does that ever pop up? And if it does, how do you write yourself?
I mean, again, this is kind of lofty. I realize saying this, and it's not like I'm just not like a 1, 2, 3 step kind of person to like, here's how to heal your relationship with wealth or whatever. it comes back to capitalism, and it comes back to realizing who is the problem. And it's the billionaires, right? Like we have, I don't even know what the percentage is, but a very small percentage of people who control like 99% of the wealth in this country. And I am guessing we're going to have to put our individual goals on hold for a minute and band together to help one another, because I can't fight the billionaires. I can't change capitalism, but I think they said if it's like 6% of the population, maybe even less, it may only be 3%, but if like 3% of the population or 6%, whatever it is, of the population would band together to fight a common enemy that is getting in the way of us all feeling successful, that sounds like a worthy like cause. And we're in a crisis right now. When we're in a crisis, I would say now is not necessarily the time to be like, oh, I'm going to build my wealth and this sort of thing. Like, it's going to be a lot harder. And I feel like we're going to be banging our heads against the wall, trying to go uphill individually. Now is the time to build collective connection and collective action against the people who want us to stay feeling poor, stay feeling like we don't have agency and there's no recourse to fight back. But there is recourse to fight back. It's happened in the past and it's going to
Yeah, we
happen in the
just
future. It's coming.
yeah, we just need to stand together. We stop
Right.
fighting each other, stand together, and if we stop fighting each other, stand together and lift each other up, that's what's going to
Right.
be change make the change.
Because scarcity has been created in the environment, right? So if so many people, and there is only so much money, right? So if it's distributed mostly at the top, there is scarcity and we are fighting and competing with one another. But that's not the way that society has to work.
Right.
It's just how it has worked in the past, but it doesn't have to work like that in the future. So like if your listeners really want to educate themselves on like what are other ways to do this work, there's an organization called the Post Growth Institute that's really, they are on the forefront of trying to figure out how do we work with money, how do we work with wealth after the empire falls, like what does that look like. And could you imagine like what they do in their organization is everybody who works for the organization decides how much money they make. And they do it by saying, okay, we got this pot of money. This is how much money we have per year, whether it's like grants or projects or whatever. And then each person basically says what they need based on their individual like social location. It's flipping the script rather than the CEO gets paid the most. Maybe the CEO actually gets paid the least because they're a single white man who has access to generational wealth, whereas the people that are working for them are single mothers, you know, who have disabled children, right? So they get to say, I need to make this amount of money. And truthfully, I don't know all of the ins and outs and how it works. And it scares the shit out of me to think about that. Like if it were my own organization. But if we don't open our brains to start thinking about doing it differently, we're not going to make it.
Right. Right. I was gonna say that is kind of scary, and at the same time, being able to open our minds up to other
Mm-hmm.
possibilities. Yeah, I say it all the time. Is i- in this world, even as business owners, like my business as well, we have to think outside the box. And before we were going live, I was telling you how transcendent wealth is not only going to be working with just business owners and entrepreneurs now. I am now thinking outside the box. Okay, how do I reach more? How do I make more of an impact? How does transcendent wealth do what I know in my heart it's meant to do? And that was thinking outside the box and expanding to also going to be working with individuals and going to be going into corporations to do boot camps and lunch and learns for their people so that they're looking at wealth differently and they're able to perform differently, because it's a proven fact that when you're stressed over money or stressed on how you're going to put food on the table, you are not going to work as well for the company that you're working for that you would normally do, because your brain is somewhere else. I mean, I know I was there. I used to be on food stamps, so I know what it's like to have your mind focus on something else. You're supposed to concentrate on work, and how do you do that? So I, when we think outside the box, like you were saying, okay, what else do we want to do? How else can we do this? I think that that's really important, because we're looking at, okay, how can we sustain ourselves and how can we help others?
Right, exactly. Because at this point in history, it's not just about you. It
Right.
really is about the collective because
Right. Right.
we are at the precipice of either we go forward and we evolve or we go backwards and we devolve. And so we have to have more people who are willing to potentially sacrifice what it is that I need right now in order to make sure that we can band together as a collective to move humanity forward instead of staying stuck.
Mm. Yeah. You and I are on the same page on so much. We agree on so much. And I know that sometimes these are hard conversations to have. And I'm going to encourage you to please listen because these are important conversations. If we don't start having these conversations, then, like Sarah says, we're going to go backwards or we're going to all just dissolve and it's going to be done. We have to do something. And I think that that's, like I said, standing together, coming together, and how not only how are we going to be able to sustain ourselves, but also how are we going to be able to help others be able to sustain as well.
Right.
And I think that that's just really, really important.
And I'll say, maybe some actionable things because people might be thinking, like, well, what am I supposed to do? Right. How do I fight the administration or how do I do this? This is where community care comes in, and we want to go hyper local. So, what is happening in your area where you live, where you can be part of the collective change? Right. So, are there like SNAP benefit as we're recording this on October 31st? SNAP benefits are going to be not
Yeah.
funded starting
Right.
tomorrow, right?
Right.
So I've been seeing a lot of stuff in my area where people are offering like I can buy you groceries this week, or like I'm able to sponsor a family and I can buy groceries every week, or I can donate, items to the local food pantry, right? How can you go to what is already happening in your city? Because there are people that like make their life around all of this, but how can you join there? Because you never know if you are the one who's going to need it at some point. Because in America, all of us are one medical emergency away from being bankrupt,
Hello.
right? So, all of this, again, it comes back to capitalism. Healthcare should not be something that, like, that CEOs of healthcare companies are making millions of dollars. Like, that's insane. That money should be like to take care of the people. If we don't have health, then we don't have any choices.
Yeah, and I also encourage this. The other thing is to be kind because I actually was hearing on the radio the other just this week, and it's an elder guy. He's a greeter at Walmart, and and someone was just really rude. But they've come find out the reason why he's a greeter at Walmart is because he used up all of his retirement
Mm-hmm.
to ensure his wife, who had a heart attack,
Yep.
did not die.
Yep.
I'm going to say that again because what Sarah just said just really went to that. And I had no intentions of putting that on that. And
Yeah.
it's really important. He's working as a greeter because all of his retirement
Mm-hmm.
was paid to the places to ensure his wife did not die from having a heart attack.
Right.
And y'all, it shouldn't be that way.
It shouldn't be that
And
way.
I agree. I was on SNAP benefits and I also was on WIC at one time when my
Mm-hmm.
babies were little.
Yep.
That is being discontinued as well because it is part of SNAP. And I don't think many people realize that.
Right.
And it is. It's part of SNAP. So not only are the families, but you're going to have mothers who have babies who get formula. And if anyone had a baby, okay, it was expensive when I had kids, and my kids are 14 and 22. Hello, I have no idea how I would
Right.
afford it now. They're the ones that are going to be, it's going to be detrimental. And so one of the things I'm looking at is, okay, what can I do? I've reached out to a couple of the schools and said, hey, are there families that are, technically should be qualifying for free lunch, maybe have a balance, and because of the situation, they may not be able to. Is there something I can,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, even if it's $100 or $50, school lunch will at least be paid for so that someone is getting food. If that means me going to a food bank or buying groceries for someone like Sarah is saying for a week, because you never know if it's
Mm-hmm.
someone in your neighborhood.
Yep.
Or, your next door neighbor. You don't know. Because I know for one, I've never, when I was in my neighborhood probably didn't know. I didn't go out and say, oh,
Right.
I didn't announce it.
Yeah.
Just like I didn't announce when we had to file bankruptcy. And my point to that is don't let it just be during this time either.
Yeah.
Because like Sarah said, you're one medical emergency, one layoff, one car accident, what something away
Mhm.
from it could be detrimental to someone.
Yep.
And I think that it's important for us to realize coming together as a community and using money for good. And if you're a good person, that's what you're going to do. It doesn't matter if you came from money or not, at least in my opinion. And I think it's important for us to say, okay, I may not have a lot of money, and what can I do to care for the people who've got less right now, who
And
are
it
going to
doesn't
be
have
hurt
to be
more than me?
financial, right? It
No,
can
it
be you're
doesn't.
volunteering your
Right.
time, right? Because you could even just go to the store to do the grocery shopping, right? So, like, just find those organizations in your area that are already doing the good work and just show up and say, "How can I help? What sort
Hmm.
of volunteers do you need right now?" There's so many ways to play a part in building what comes next. Don't don't get overwhelmed. Just like try to find the good organizations in your area that are doing good shit.
Yeah, because there's going to be, I mean, you're going to have the big ones, but you're also going to have small organizations. And like you said, there may be where um, they'll need shoppers because they're going to
Yep.
have more people. They're going to need more people to bag the bags because they're going to have more families coming
Yep.
for the food. And one of the things that there is a actual lady in Colombia where I'm from that I saw it and I thought it was so cool. And she does it as a business, but for elderlies, she does it. It's either at a huge discount or for free. The only thing they pay her for her gas, so it's basically
Mm.
reimbursing her gas, and she goes and gets their groceries. So they have to
Mm.
pay her for the grocery, right?
Yep.
Because they're paying for the groceries. But
Yep.
she goes and picks it up and brings it to them. And not only does she bring it to them, she walks it inside, she unbags it, and she puts it up.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really cool.
Right?
My husband
So,
works with older adults, and that's a huge
and it's,
service. Yeah.
and yes, she'll do the same for me and I'm paying her, but like for someone in our family who's elderly or been hurt or
Mhm.
disabled, that's what she does, and she cuts the cost. So she's not making money. They're paying for the gas,
Yep.
right, that it took, which of course they pay for gas that they drove,
Mhm.
and the groceries itself. And I just think that things like that is there someone, that you could say, "Hey, you know what? Let me go get your groceries for you. Let me,"
Yep.
because you're taking a burden off of them, even if it's a single mom. Hello.
Yep.
You're taking some type of stress off of their shoulders, and I
Yep.
think that that's key is to, again, I come back to think outside the box
Yeah. And
because
to
it's not
me,
always straight and narrow.
right, and to me, this is how we build wealth. I mean, for
Mhm,
me, wealth will always be measured by the quality of relationships that I have,
mhm,
and I
mhm.
can't think of a better way to build wealth than to be helping your neighbors right now.
Well, and that goes into, my 5 wealth codes that I came up with, because I tell people in order to be truly wealthy, you need to be living aligned in the 5 areas, and that's spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, and financial. And
Mhm.
spiritual is about helping others, right? And emotional, so if we're living in alignment in our values and the way we care, which is part of our relationships, and relationships go into those 5, then we're going to be wealthy, because to me, being wealthy is so much more than just having money. And I think that people need to see that we can be wealthy. It can include having some financial, yes, or
Yep.
having the fun. And are we wealthy in these other areas? Because if we're
Yes.
not, we're still going to feel like we're broke and poor. And that's why, is because we're not living in alignment in those areas. And that's the reason why I created the codes to begin with. And so it comes back down to also, like, allocation of assets is one of the profit leaks that I came up with. Well, allocation assets, how are you allocating your assets of giving, of taking care of the relationships you're in, of giving into your community? If you're not and there's a leak, then that's a leak that should be plugged in the areas so that you're back in alignment. And so that's where it comes up to. I absolutely love this conversation. It's been refreshing and it's powerful, and I love you. You already know that. Because it's blending not just the therapy, but the truth and business and our day to day life for individuals, business owners, and non business owners, just individually, all collectively. in a way that I think so many women and men, but especially women, need to hear. And I want to thank you for being here. And
Yeah.
again, thank you for coming. And so, where can listeners connect with you? And can you share more about, because I love this membership, you know that, share more about the Group Practice Revolution membership that you're offering?
Sure. So the work that I'm doing right now is all B2B, business to business. So I'm working with group practice owners who want to create wholehearted businesses that are really focused on connection. And like every other group practice person out there is like scale and do all these things. Like, no, nope. Like, I think it just, again, it comes naturally out of the good work. So I'm like, let's build a good foundation together and then everything else will come. So you can find me at headheartbiztherapy.com for consulting stuff. And Group Practice Revolution is one of my offerings is sort of a living amends to the harm that I caused as a practice owner. Because before I thought of myself as a business owner, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I hurt some of my employees. And so, Group Practice Revolution is a platform where practice owners and employees can come together and try to figure out through support groups and consultation and webinars and all this other stuff, how do we do group practice in the future? Because what we're doing right now is not what we're going to be doing 10 years from now. And I want to be part of figuring out what comes next. So join me at grouppracticerevolution.com.
I love it. I love it. And for my ladies that are listening, if you're ready to stop avoiding your numbers and start feeling confident, calm, and clear with your cash flow and personal or business, okay, it's time to book your wealth alignment call because we'll look at your money where it's misaligned, what's working, and how to create financial systems that actually feel good and work for you and what you're wanting to do out in the world. Okay. Because I really think that that's important. The link for all the things will be in the show notes. So let's make sure that your money is supporting your mission because I think that's really important. And until next time, remember, confidence and cash are the ultimate power duo. Go check in with your money. And as always, have a fantastic, wealthy day. Thanks.